Mr. H once again, part 5 of the Neon mini series that we're doing as far as reconditioning goes. Just do me a favor right now, just that like button, go ahead, hit it. If you're not subscribed already, what's wrong with you? You should be. If you made it this far without subscribing, we'll pass that. But anyway, let's get on to the next portion of the video that we didn't have time for in the last video. Let's talk about actually taking these valves out of the cylinder head. So this is the dangerous part. This is the part where safety glasses absolutely all the way, because one of these keepers can launch clean across the shop and then bounce off walls and make it to the other end of the shop. So you have to be very careful. We're talking about pressurized springs between 75 and 100 foot-pounds of force to compress them. That's a lot. That can launch pieces of metal very far, and you can get very, very hurt and injured if you do not do this process the correct way. So we're going to talk about valve spring compressors. This is going to be the generic one that you guys are going to use. Not all of them are the same. Some work better than others. It might be hard to get some valves that are close to the edge of the actual cylinder head crown here on this this portion right here. Some of them are very close to that, so it can be a little difficult to get to them. What you do is, here is your adjustment to make this work. Okay, this is fully open. As you're compressing the spring, you're pushing this guy closed. So open, closed. This side here goes on the actual bottom portion of the valve. So on the bottom right here, so if I were to talk to you about the valve, pretend it's in the cylinder head, this is going to go like this. This portion is going to be on the top retainer, and it's going to push the valve down, but you have to make sure that this guy is nicely planted on that bottom of the valve like that when it's in the cylinder head. So here we go. Things we're going to need. We're going to need this, protection, maybe a screwdriver, maybe a small pick, and some sort of magnet. Okay, so what we're going to do is, right off the bat, I think I'm going to go with trying to get this exhaust valve out, because that'll probably be a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attempt to roll this guy out of the way, just so I won't smash into anything and I have a clear spot. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see where everything's at. I'm going to make my adjustments on the tool. So I'm going to thread this guy in. I'm going to kind of see where I'm at as far as on the valve itself. So that's pretty good right there. When you have this on top of the retainer, you want to make it as square as you can. So if I am able to take the laptop, which I think I am, you see how the tool is right there. Some of the ones you're working with, it's not going to be that nice. It's not going to be that perfect. But what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to push down. What you're doing is compressing that spring. So since I have it locked right now, I'm going to show you what it looks like when you have the spring compressed. So you can see that. You can see the stem of the valve is now sticking up. I can get to the keepers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy magnet, which is more like half of a magnet. But I'm going to take that and I'm going to grab those keepers. I'm going to put them down over here so I don't lose them. There is nothing holding this spring now but the spring compressor. So if this were to shoot, boom, retainer goes flying, spring goes flying. That's how people get hurt. So make sure you're being as careful and work slowly. It's not a race. Be very slow when you're at this step. Things can go flying very easily. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to release the tension on the actual valve spring. Now I can take the tool away from the cylinder head, place it off to the side. I take the spring and the retainer that were there, and now I can simply just push that valve out the bottom of the head. And what I do to keep it organized is I would put these in separate bags. So this would be like, exhaust valve like 1 out of cylinder 2 or something like that. I'd put something like that, label it, keep it all together like this, along with the keepers, and then put that in a bag by itself, all separate. So that's the way it's done. I know it looked very easy. You'll find it is not as easy as I just showed you. I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm as shocked as you are. That usually doesn't go the way that just did. At least on the intake side, it'll be a little harder because if I tilt this guy sideways so you guys can see. So you can see here, I have a lot of clearance around the actual cylinder head molding itself. On the intake side, you see it's very close to this corner here. It's hard to get the tool around that. So you might have to make do with not being completely on the retainer and you're gonna like freak out. It's okay, if you need my help, I'll come over, I'll help you guys. But you gotta do that 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. It'll take you a little bit of time. If you notice anything like imperfection wise, or if maybe one was not seated or something like that, make sure you make note of it. Make sure you let me know if there's something that happens where, hey, Mr. H, this thing's gonna launch and we don't know what to do next. Just yell across the shop. I will come over as fast as I can and hopefully I can help you guys out in figuring how to not have it explode on you. But that would be the next step. So after that, now what? I'm glad you asked. Now I can take the cylinder head and move it off to the side. Now we get to use this antique. Oh yeah, this guy. So what this guy is going to do, so when you were talking about valve height, so installed valve height and freestanding height, we're talking about freestanding height, but now we're going to see how strong is this valve, you know, altogether. Is it, because a valve can be perfect freestanding, but we're talking about applying pressure. How much can that valve actually take? So when you actually go through the manual, you will see a spec for actually measuring in foot-pounds, how much pressure should I apply on this valve and how much should it actually compress. So there is a little bit of math required in the actual manual to figure this out, but it is there. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take that spring, you're gonna put it right there in the center. It might say something like apply 75 foot-pounds of force, and it should only drop to like, I don't know, an inch and a quarter or something like that. So just to show you how this works, what I'm gonna do right here, this outer circle is in foot-pounds, so it goes from 0 to 500 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna go, let's say 80 foot-pounds, and we'll see where we're at. On here, this is a ruler, so from 0 to 5 inches on this side, and then meters on this side. So I can measure. So just starting out, freestanding height for this one, I'm about 1.8, somewhere around 1.8 for freestanding height. Now let's apply 80 foot-pounds. Okay, so on the needle I have 80 foot-pounds, and you can move this needle if you want to like make a mark just in case you forget, but don't have to. And now it shows that I am at a little bit above 1.5, so an inch and a half. Now if I really go for it, let's say I want to go to, you know, 140 foot-pounds, now I'm at 1.350 inches as the spring compresses. But what you're doing with this tool is you're trying to figure out, is the spring weak? You know, if I have a spring that's completely weak and it no longer is retaining the strength it once had, it's going to compress very easy with not as much pressure. So that's what you're trying to figure out with this. There is a couple other tools you can use, but this one's like the classic antique one that is like timeless, that everyone seems to like. So we'll leave this one out. That is something else that you will need to do for each one of your valve springs. Remember, you got to label them, make sure you keep them in order because they got to go back to the same spot once it's all said and done. That should cover the majority of what you're doing for head work for today. You might get a little farther along. In that case, come to me. I'll let you know what to do next. Some of you are going to be working on bottom end. I am not going to make a video for bottom end yet, but I can guarantee it will be just as fun. So stay tuned for part 6. Once again, like, subscribe. I'll see you next time.